Tonight, first-hand accounts after a passenger jet hits extreme turbulence.
It was instantaneous and horrible.
How one person died, many others were injured.
Some poor people who were walking around ended up doing somersaults.
We'll ask a pilot to break down why there may be more of this to come. Allegations of partisanship, why the Speaker of the House of Commons is under fire again.
I regret to say that the Speaker must go.
Newfoundland's iceberg tourism is missing the main attraction.
We looked out the harbour, there's no icebergs here right now.
Why local spirits are resilient.
From CBC News, this is The National with Asha Tomlinson.
Thanks for joining us. Adrian is on assignment. Passengers aboard a Singapore Airlines flight are recounting a terrifying episode of extreme turbulence. Sadly, one person died of a suspected heart attack. The plane was forced to make an emergency landing in Thailand, where people were treated or taken to local hospital. 2 Canadians were among the 211 passengers on the flight, but there's no word yet on their condition. Briar Stewart shows us the aftermath of a chaotic scene inside the cabin after a rapid and dramatic drop in altitude above the Indian Ocean.
These were the moments after a Boeing 777 flying from London to Singapore was forced to make an emergency landing in Thailand. Some of the 211 passengers on board were carried off on stretchers. Others were triaged and treated on the tarmac of the airport after they were violently thrown around the plane when it hit severe turbulence.
It was instantaneous. It really was. And horrible.
Jerry was traveling with family to a wedding in Australia.
It went so sudden, there was no warning at all. And I ended up hitting my head on the ceiling, my wife did. Some poor people who were walking around ended up doing somersaults.
Tragically, a British passenger, 73-year-old Jeff Kitchen, died of a suspected heart attack. People not buckled in slammed into the overhead bins, denting some, causing the oxygen masks to fall. The crew was serving breakfast at the time and was particularly vulnerable.
Your son came on, and as soon as I saw him, I put my seatbelt on. And at that very moment, the plane just suddenly dropped.
Passengers said the turbulence lasted seconds.
We do not know exactly what happened in this event.
Captain Shem Momquist has flown the 777 and is a safety investigator. He says in warm tropical places like Myanmar, where this plane hit severe turbulence, storms form differently than they do in places like North America and may not be visible to the pilots.
It is very likely that the storm will just not present itself at all on the radar, and the pilots will suddenly notice at the very last minute as they're approaching.
Which is why he urges passengers to wear their seatbelt throughout a flight, because while what happened is extremely rare, there may be little warning. An investigation is underway to determine what caused the plane to drop, but experts say that climate change is causing more turbulence. One group of researchers from the UK predict that in the coming decades, severe turbulence caused by changing jet streams could double or even triple. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
So how do pilots stay on the alert for that sort of dangerous turbulence? The captain you just saw in Briar's piece has flown the route where that plane ran into so much trouble. He'll share his know-how a bit later on the breakdown. Turning to the latest in Haiti now, where hundreds of Kenyan forces are expected to arrive soon, part of a plan to stabilize the country and deal with its gang violence. Paul Hunter is in Haiti and explains why its neighbor is cracking down on those desperate to get out.
Like in so much of the rest of the country, at the Haitian border town of Ouanaminthe, chaos reigns.
We're right at Haiti's border with the Dominican Republic. The line is right there. Dominicans can come this way, but with rare exceptions, Haitians cannot step foot on the other side.
Haitians want to get out, Dominicans won't let them. As Haiti's capital spirals in gang violence, the Dominican Republic wants no part of it. They're even building a border wall. It's partly finished. It'll grow much longer. Gang members in Port-au-Prince make it worse for everyone in Haiti, this Haitian man tells us. Then we come here and get pushed back by Dominicans. But now signals change may be coming to Haiti. Haitian authorities releasing this video showing some of what's lately been delivered to this country ahead of the now imminent arrival of a multinational police force led by Kenya, all aimed at helping restore order. An advance team from Kenya is now also in this country. And the U.S. now underlines Haitian police have lately made headway battling the gangs.
In the last few weeks, they've actually done a better job of that. They've taken back control of the airport and other critical infrastructure. In fact, today, commercial flights resumed in Haiti.
Indeed, at the Port-au-Prince airport, a breakthrough. For the first time in 3 months, commercial air travel. I'm able to leave by the grace of God, said this woman before boarding. I'm happy. Still, not all Haitians welcome the coming foreign forces. Back at Ouanaminthe, the graffiti reads, "We don't want Kenya in Haiti." Then again, as this woman who fled Port-au-Prince for the safety of her family underlined for us, I welcome the Kenyans. Haitians are destroying themselves.
Paul, what can you tell us about the approach Kenya's forces plan to take when they land in Haiti?
Yeah, well, the idea is to not try to do everything all at once, to start small and get big. Regain control of the airport, for example. Well, they think they've already done that. Regain control of the major access roads so that people can come and go from the city without fearing for their lives. Regain control of the port and then grow it from there. But that said, it's a big city, and gangs are in control of 80% of Port-au-Prince right now, and they're very well armed. It's not going to be easy.
Paul Hunter in Cap-Haïtien, Haiti for us tonight. Thanks. The UN has suspended food distribution in Rafah after running out of supplies in the southern Gaza city. The U.S. Central Command had been using a temporary floating pier to deliver aid, but the UN confirms nothing has arrived for several days. The Pentagon says it's now looking at alternative options. Ceremonies have begun across Iran in memory of Ebrahim Raisi following his death in a helicopter crash on Sunday. Thousands lined the streets of Tabriz during a funeral procession for the Iranian president and 7 others killed in the crash, including the country's foreign minister. Raisi's body was later flown to the holy city of Qum for another ceremony before being taken to Tehran, where the main funeral will take place tomorrow. Raisi will then be buried in his hometown on Thursday. The official opposition is calling on the Speaker of the House to resign. That demand after an ad for an event featuring Greg Fergus took shots at the Conservative Party and its leader. Rafi Boudjikanian now with what it said and why Fergus may not be leaving.
Order. Order.
Greg Fergus's job is to keep MPs in line, but Conservatives say he has crossed a partisan line in a job that requires impartiality. The offence, this invite to an upcoming Liberal event in Fergus's writing, scrubbed from the web but saved by the official opposition. It reads in part, Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives propose reckless policies that would risk our health, safety and pocketbooks.
For the good of the institution, of Parliament, and the enduring interest of the House of Commons, I regret to say that the Speaker must go.
The Speaker's office said the invite was written by the Federal Party without Fergus's knowledge.
The Liberal Party of Canada basically blindsided the Speaker, and in this case, that's why the National Director of the Liberal Party of Canada, I believe, needs to apologize fully and completely to the Speaker of the House of Commons.
This is not Fergus's first controversy as Speaker. Last December, the Conservatives and the Bloc Québécois tried to oust him after he appeared in a video message at an Ontario Liberal event wearing his Speaker's robe. He was forced to apologize in the House and pay a $1,500 fine.
I am deeply sorry.
Tensions reignited just last month. Fergus ejected Poilievre from the House after the Conservative leader refused to withdraw these comments.
This wacko policy by this wacko Prime Minister.
On Tuesday, the Prime Minister stood by the Speaker.
I have full confidence in Greg Fergus as Speaker of the House of Commons, as a thoughtful, independent-minded leader. The issue was dealt with, was addressed by the party.
In fact, as suggested by the NDP, the Liberals apologized to Fergus in a public letter, taking responsibility for the offending part of the invite. But the Conservatives say that's not good enough. They want Fergus out of the Speaker's chair. Rafah Bijikani on CBC News, Ottawa.
Donald Trump did not take the stand in his hush money trial in New York and rested his defense after calling just 2 witnesses. Trump said prosecutors were trying to hurt his effort to win back the White House.
You're playing with fire like this, it's very sad. But the good news is they've not proven a case.
Trump has denied any wrongdoing and pleaded not guilty to 34 criminal charges. Closing arguments will be heard next week before the jury begins deliberations. We are learning more tonight about what went wrong during last year's flash flooding in Nova Scotia. A new report shows how emergency alert issues made a bad situation worse for some desperate families. Kayla Hounsel now with parents who say more needs to be done.
6-year-old Colton Cisco was fast asleep when floodwaters began to fill his home. His dad tried to get him out of the area.
The water had a strong current in the truck. I didn't even know where it went.
Colton was one of 4 people who died after being swept away in 2 separate vehicles last July. Now, a new report from the municipality of West Hants says an emergency alert telling people to shelter in place was delayed.
We need an emergency alert put out for West Hants.
But the request comes again.
I need that emergency alert put out.
And again.
I really need urgency for you to put that emergency alert out.
At 2:28, Colton's mom gets wind of these attempts and calls to wake his dad. And finally, nearly 2 hours after it was first requested, the alert is issued.
By the time the alert was issued, Colton was dead.
What do you think went wrong?
I don't think anything went wrong per se. It was an unprecedented storm.
The report says part of the problem was poor cell service. There was also no access to flood mapping. Though this after-action report has just been released, the Intact Center on Climate Adaptation at the University of Waterloo released a report in 2020, prior to the Nova Scotia floods, raising similar concerns.
Quite frankly, the more lethal outcome associated with the event perhaps could have been avoided.
The municipality has created templates to help write alerts faster and increase the number of people who can authorize them.
I'm so disappointed.
The Ciscos want someone with the ability to request an alert on call 24/7. They say they'll never stop advocating for Colton's friends.
I don't think I could just stop knowing that a whole generation is going to have to face this.
She says her family's tragedy should serve as a reminder that the time for action on climate change is now. Kayla Hounsel, CBC News, West Hants, Nova Scotia.
Notorious serial killer Robert Pickton remains in critical condition tonight, 2 days after a violent attack at a maximum security prison in Quebec. Pickton has since had surgery following what Correctional Service Canada called a major assault by another inmate. His 2007 conviction for the murders of 6 women resulted in a life sentence. The remains of 33 women were found at his BC pig farm. Canada's rate of inflation has slowed yet again, sparking speculation about a potential interest rate cut. April's overall inflation rate was 2.7%. That's the lowest it's been in 3 years. It also marks the 4th consecutive month inflation has landed within the Bank of Canada's 2 to 3% target. Peter Armstrong is here to help us with what it all means. Peter, first up, what are the biggest factors helping to stabilize things?
One of the most interesting parts here is just how broad-based, how widespread this deceleration is, right? The year-over-year rate slowed, the core inflation measures all eased. You break it down on the shorter term, the 1 month, the 3 month. They're all telling us the same story. In a weird way, it might be easier to list the things that are actually going up faster than the Bank of Canada's target of 2%. Gasoline was up more than 6%. Shelter costs are kind of notoriously higher than everything else. But in spite of those, inflation cooled to the slowest pace we've seen in 3 years.
Wow. And you know, the big question for a lot of people, what could this mean for interest rates?
We're going to find out soon. The Bank of Canada meets on June 5th, and economists have been really split on whether they'd see a cut in June or in July. We can really only go on what the Bank of Canada has said. Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem was asked point blank, is it possible that he'd cut rates in June? And he said yes, but that, and I'll read his quote here, we're looking for evidence that the recent further easing in underlying inflation will be sustained. Is today's report sustained enough? We'll find out in 2 weeks' time. But for what it's worth, June or July, markets are pricing in an expectation that they'll see 3 quarter-point cuts by the end of this year.
Thanks for breaking it down for us, as always, Peter. Boeing is investing $240 million toward an aerospace hub near Montreal. As Jennifer Yoon shows us, Quebec is anchoring its innovation hopes with a plane maker that's been on a rocky ride.
Quebec's $415 million plan is ambitious. Leverage the help of industry giant Boeing to create an aerospace hub rivaling global leaders in Seattle and Toulouse, France.
Montreal has the leading aviation ecosystem research and development precinct in the world. That's why we're here.
Premier François Legault promises Boeing's participation will bring more high-paying jobs to the province, boost the economy, and build on the fact that major players are already in Montreal.
What we've done is we put steroids on the industry cluster we had already.
Quebec will contribute $85 million, and other companies, including Bombardier, will pitch in an additional $60 million combined. But Boeing will fork over the lion's share, $240 million. It comes at a time of intense scrutiny for the company. The U.S. Department of Justice is weighing criminal charges after major mistakes, like loose bolts on Boeing 737s and a panel flying off an Alaska Airlines plane mid-flight.
It speaks to a culture that really does need to change.
That aside, Boeing's investment here is part of a deal it struck with the federal government after Canada bought a fleet of Boeing military surveillance planes. And this expert says Boeing's investment was crucial for Quebec.
Now, there are other defense companies, but it can't just be purely defense. It also has to be commercial aviation as well for diversification and for different technologies.
And one industry insider says for Boeing, this might be a chance to rebrand and move forward. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Montreal.
An investigation has now been launched into the death of Matthew Perry, about 6 months after it was ruled an accident. Police are trying to determine how Perry was in possession of such large amounts of ketamine, an anesthetic that contributed to his death. Perry died at his home in his hot tub at the age of 54. His autopsy later revealed the levels of ketamine in his blood were similar to the amount used during general anesthesia. There is growing concern about the impact of a shortage of dermatologists in this country.
The sun will kill you if you let it.
Why it could lead to more skin cancer deaths next. Plus, chaos in the skies after severe turbulence.
It was instantaneous and horrible.
We'll hear from a pilot who's flown through that exact route and says it could happen more often. And later, a Blue Jays fan pays a big price.
Within minutes, I had it was a goose egg right on my head.
Why she's putting on a brave face after a painful moment. We're back in 2. A chaotic scene in downtown Toronto Monday night as 2 groups shot fireworks at each other. Toronto police say no one was hurt, but at a local park, things turned violent. Officers say 2 men were stabbed after a confrontation over fireworks. An 18-year-old has been charged with assault. A shortage of dermatologists across Canada means patients who need to be screened for skin cancer have to wait longer. Yvette Bren looks at what's being done with cases of melanoma on the rise.
I've had 4 melanomas removed from my head.
Bruce Ballingall has lost much of the skin on his skull to cancer.
I have 5 brothers, and all 6 of us have some type of skin cancer.
Mole mobile nurse Faye Youssef used a scope to screen his chest.
Looking at them, they do appear a little bit scaly and red.
Nobody warned me even about it until it was too late. And now I know all about it, and that's why I'm here to help convince people the sun will kill you if you let it.
He's eager for this charity-run mobile cancer screening van to drive to Kamloops, where his brother has waited for a dermatology appointment for a year and a half.
There's no dermatologist in Kamloops, apparently. So when this unit gets there, people will be able to get checked out.
Canada has only 770 dermatologists, mostly in urban parts of the country. 290 in Ontario, 96 in BC, 12 in Saskatchewan, and only 1 in PEI. This according to the Canadian Dermatology Association.
I don't have the perfect solution, but I think it goes with training more, retaining more.
He says Canada loses dermatologists to retirement or better paying jobs, often in cosmetic clinics.
It does pay that much more, yes. I'm a primary researcher, so I do skin cancer research. I think about skin cancer all the time, and I'm capped according to a provincial billing, which is among the lowest specialists in the province.
Meanwhile, melanoma can spread in months. So this Montreal woman was frantic to find a specialist. That took months, but only minutes for the doctor to flag a mole on her back and remove it. 8 weeks later, cancer was confirmed.
It knocked the breath out of me, honestly. I knew that something was wrong. It's not normal to have a pimple or a mole that's going to basically disrupt your whole day.
She is relieved her skin cancer was caught in time, but worries about others who aren't so lucky. Yvette Brend, CBC News, Vancouver.
A major attraction is missing so far this season from a Newfoundland community.
We're going to continue to see decreased ice cover, thinner ice, fewer icebergs.
What it could mean for iceberg tourism. Plus, extreme turbulence on a Singapore Airlines flight. Why some say this type of incident could happen more often. And bags of drug money laundered through a big Canadian bank.
TD Bank is going to have major problems. Major problems.
Andrew Chang on the allegations the bank let it happen. The National breaks down the stories shaping our world next. You're looking at Antarctica's Thwaites Glacier. A new study shows it's melting faster than researchers had previously thought due to a huge body of warmer seawater below it. The fear is that if it collapses, global sea levels could rise significantly, which helps explain its nickname, the Doomsday Glacier. Icebergs draw huge crowds to parts of the Newfoundland coastline, but this year they're fewer in number and smaller in size. Peter Cowan looks at what it means for local economies and for future iceberg seasons.
You can see lots of signs for icebergs in Twillingate, even in the local beer, but there's one place that you can't find the real thing.
We looked out the harbour, there's no icebergs here right now.
Barry Rogers is getting ready for his first tour of the season. About half of the customers at Iceberg Quest are looking for, well, icebergs, and he doesn't have any to offer.
It's a little disappointing, but I mean, we've been doing this, Peter, for a long time. And, you know, there's no two seasons that are the same to us.
Sea ice helps protect icebergs from melting and breaking up as they float down from Greenland. But a warmer ocean meant there was less ice this year. Secor is a non-profit company that tracks icebergs for offshore oil platforms and for the Iceberg Finder website. Its data shows that over the last few decades, the amount of sea ice has been shrinking.
We're going to continue to see decreased ice cover, thinner ice, fewer icebergs. And that's something that we just have to deal with.
It's not good news for tourists like Peter Lamarck, here from the Netherlands with one goal.
Well, I'm 60 this year, so I want to see an iceberg in my life.
Alrighty, excellent. Oh, nice.
For businesses that rely on tourists, it means a pivot. Deborah Borden runs a pub, a hotel, and a restaurant. She says when her guests can't see icebergs, she encourages them to enjoy the hiking, history, or the people.
While we know that people may have some disappointment, I really truly believe that when they leave, many of them just say, hey, I'll be back, and maybe the next time we'll get to see icebergs.
It's still early in the season. A few icebergs may still float by, but for the long term, all people here can do is hope that the icebergs and the tourists keep coming. Peter Cowan, CBC News, Twillingate, Newfoundland.
Now it's time to dig deeper into the stories shaping our world. Why TD is under investigation. Did the bank ignore signs it was being used to make drug money look clean?
The analysts we spoke to say this is money laundering 101.
But first, what's it like to fly a jet on a route where severe turbulence can strike at any second? The latest incident left one man dead, 30 people injured. As experts say, disturbances like this are becoming more likely. We'll find out how pilots learn to be ready for the worst. Shem Malmquist is a pilot and a fellow of the Royal Aeronautical Society. He's also an instructor at the Florida Institute of Technology. Captain, the airline said that the plane encountered, quote, sudden extreme turbulence. To your knowledge, as someone who has flown this exact route, what kind of turbulence might this have been?
Well, it's really a process of elimination in this case. Turbulence generally only forms from three major areas, one being the effect off of mountain ranges, and there are none nearby. The other is associated with the jet stream, but that requires being at latitudes closer to the poles. And the other one is convective or thunderstorm turbulence. And so of those three, the thunderstorm turbulence seems to make the most sense. And that's assuming that it is turbulence, which we don't know at this time. There are a couple of other things that could happen where the aircraft can induce this or the pilots can, but there's no indication of that at this time.
Right. I mean, given your expertise, we're speculating here, but according to the reports, the plane moved upwards before falling significantly. What do you think would cause that?
Well, when the aircraft is flying along, and have a model here where an aircraft flying along, if it runs into sudden updrafts where the air is moving upward very rapidly, then that's going to push the aircraft up, really increasing the lift over the wings, and the aircraft is going to move up very rapidly at that time. And of course, if this is a thunderstorm, like there's been some speculation, then with thunderstorms there's also downdrafts, so the aircraft goes up and then goes down. And if you're a passenger that got moved up, your body is still moving up when the airplane is moving down, and if you're not strapped in, you go straight to the ceiling.
Wow. You know, I can't imagine what's going on in the cockpit following that scenario. What can you tell us about that? I mean, what you think would be going on?
Well, having encountered turbulence several times during my career, the primary thing the pilots are going to be doing is ensuring aircraft control. So putting their hands on their controls and trying to keep the aircraft pitch attitude, or up or down, as constant as possible. We're nominally flying about 3 degrees nose up and cruise at those altitudes. And so you really, without making any sudden movements, you try to keep it roughly along those lines. And of course, the other things that could be happening is you could be getting some warnings. The autopilot may disconnect depending on what's going on, and factors such as that. But the best thing the pilot can do is try to keep it as close as possible to the nominal cruise flight attitude.
You know, pilots are obviously good at forecasting turbulence for the most part to passengers, but what makes this sudden extreme turbulence, you know, hard to forecast or hard to predict?
Well, one of the things that we have seen is that in certain areas that are really characterized, such as the Bay of Bengal, where you have warm oceanic water, and at the same time, kind of tropical regions, and these can create a manifestation of a thunderstorm that is just a bit different than what most pilots are trained to do. Pilots and most of the textbooks come out of North America, and the model of the way thunderstorms essentially portray themselves over North America is different than other parts of the world. Unfortunately, airlines provide very minimal training for weather. You know, pilots get that earlier in their careers, and so they really have to rely somewhat on experience. But these are really newer phenomena.
I feel like, and it seems like there seems to be more turbulence-related injuries lately. Why are we seeing this rise?
Well, very simply, this is an outcome of climate change. As we get a warmer world, we're seeing more extremes in the weather. And these types of phenomena that were less frequent when things were a little bit cooler are becoming more common. And that's coupled, of course, with the increased frequency of flights.
You know, summer is high time for travel for a lot of people. I mean, I'm even thinking about the Olympics. People are traveling for that. What advice do you have for passengers?
Well, I'm certainly still traveling this summer, riding in the back with my family. I'm not concerned about it. The main thing that I think that as a passenger you can do is that seatbelt is your best control. Keep it buckled and tightened. That's really one of the best things that you can do to ensure that you do not get injured in this kind of event.
Sound advice. Shem Malmquist, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Coming up, allegations a big Canadian bank didn't do enough to stop a huge money laundering scheme.
We should be very well set up to capture and dismantle schemes that are this simple.
Andrew Chang breaks down how it happened and what the bank might have missed. A major Canadian bank under investigation after a drug ring used it to launder money.
Banks are required by law to watch out for things.
U.S. investigators say they witnessed suspicious deposits in multiple branches.
It should have raised eyebrows somewhere.
The question now, did TD know it was happening or do enough to prevent it? Andrew Chang, host of CBC's About That, is here to break down the case against TD and what it could mean for one of Canada's corporate titans.
Imagine this, you're at a bank and you see someone walk in with several large bags. They go up to a teller and from these big bags, they pull out these big bundles of cash. Then they immediately get the bank to turn that cash into cashier's checks, a whole bunch of them, made out to different people, different businesses. Would you think something was up? There's a group of people charged in the United States for doing exactly that, laundering hundreds of millions of dollars of drug money through banks for years. And it turns out there's a Canadian bank at the center of it all.
It looks like the hammer's ready to come down on TD.
According to these reports, fentanyl was involved. Investors not happy to hear about that.
TD Bank is going to have major problems. Major problems.
TD is being investigated by 3 different U.S. regulators and the Department of Justice. It could be facing billions of dollars in fines, and it knows it has major problems. It told nearly 2,000 executives in a recent conference call, it's simply appalling that these criminals were able to break through our defenses, and it is unacceptable that we were not able to stop them. So how were criminals able to funnel incredible amounts of dirty money through TD, and why is TD being investigated for allegedly letting it happen? We dug through reams of court records, media reports, internal communications. We spoke to sources close to the bank to try to get to the bottom of what happened. Let's go through it. Here's part of a mass email TD's CEO sent out to the entire corporation last week. Simply put, our anti-money laundering program did not deliver. We did not meet our expectations or our regulatory obligations to monitor, detect, report, and respond to suspicious activity. Banks are required by law to watch out for things that might signal some sort of criminal activity is happening. The US body that oversees banking regulations lays out a whole list of red flags to look out for, including when a customer has established multiple accounts in various corporate or individual names, and when deposits are structured through multiple branches of the same bank. According to court documents, this is exactly what the money launderers did at TD. For example, on January 20th, 2021 in New York City, agents tracked a group of suspects in a supermarket parking lot and watched as they exchanged at least 5 large bags. Then they followed one of them through the streets of Queens as she went into 3 separate TD branches, depositing large amounts of cash over the counter into different accounts. While all of this was happening, a box truck with the other group members drove around doing the same thing. Investigators say the group deposited over $2.3 million in cash that day alone, without issue. And according to the court documents, that wasn't an unusual day for them. Investigators say they witnessed at least a dozen other days like this, where the group drove around town with thousands, hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars in cash, depositing it at different branches virtually all day. spreading smaller amounts of cash around so you don't trigger automatic alerts. The experts we spoke to said this is the dead simplest way to get dirty money into a bank. Banks like TD know this, and yet it went on for years. Banks are also more than just passive receptacles for your money. There is a requirement that they do their due diligence on their customers, especially when a big chunk of money is deposited when the nature of the account holder's business would not appear to justify such activity.
You need to know what products, goods, and services that they have, what jurisdictions they're operating in, what is their volume of sales expected to be.
If a business is deemed high risk, or the bank just can't dig up enough information about it, they're supposed to monitor its transactions extra closely. In this case, investigators linked many of the money launderers' deposits to 7 different small businesses, but not the kind you'd expect to be pulling in millions or even hundreds of thousands of dollars a day. They were mostly sewing companies, clothing-related, fashion-related. Also, none of them appear to have actual storefronts or websites. And according to New York State's business database, most were officially registered to this address. It's a warehouse in Long Island. Put simply, prosecutors say they were shell companies, and they should have been at least noticed.
Ignoring their client, monitoring their accounts, assessing their risk is just simply failed.
But what good is depositing heaps and heaps of cash if you can't get it back out later? One way to do that, and this is another big red flag for a bank, is when a customer purchases a number of cashier's checks, money orders, or traveler's checks for large amounts. And in this case, court documents tell us this was exactly what those criminals did. They ordered multiple cashier's checks and had them made out to different people, different businesses, because a cashier's check is certified by the bank and looks way more legit than a giant bag of cash.
If you take that check and deposit it into another institution, it's determined to or thought to be clean money.
Again, the analysts we spoke to say this is money laundering 101, which is why banks are told to watch out for it. And investigators say this group of criminals was doing this a lot.
The amount of cashier's checks that were ordered and personal checks that were issued against cash, it should have raised eyebrows somewhere.
And they didn't even really seem to be hiding it. Investigators say members of this group would often move millions of dollars out of their accounts immediately after they deposited large amounts of cash. And then sometimes they'd see them hand those checks over to their associates inside the bank in plain view. Now, we also learned through court documents that these money launderers had inside help. The lead defendant recently pleaded guilty to bribing tellers to look the other way. To their credit, TD says they caught some of this and took appropriate action to exit people when unacceptable behavior was found. But even if some of TD's employees were corrupted, banks are supposed to have layers of both electronic and human monitoring in place.
You can't train ethics. You can, however, have these systems in place in the background that are still going to detect these transactions.
So it's the responsibility of the banks to notice when they're being exploited. Then they have to report even mere suspicions that something illegal may be happening. They're called suspicious activity reports, and they look like this. There's even a whole section here on money laundering. Suspicion concerning the source of funds, suspicious exchange of currencies, suspicious use of multiple accounts. The banks have to fill all of this out. They send it to the authorities within 30 days. And though TD claims it did report some of this group's activity, the CEO says it was not enough and we were just too slow.
It's disappointing. We should be very well set up to capture and dismantle schemes that are this simple.
Now, to be clear, not all of the money this group was laundering made its way through TD. Investigators say they used other banks too. It's unclear if the DOJ is investigating those banks. But we know that this isn't even close to the only investigation TD is dealing with right now. Just last month, Canadian regulators charged TD $9.2 million, a record in Canada, for failing to file reports on 20 transactions that they say TD should have suspected were facilitating money laundering or terrorism. TD's also set aside about $600 million Canadian in anticipation of fines from another American regulator and said that's an initial provision, meaning there's probably more to come. Some analysts believe the total fines could hit $2 billion US, which, just so we're clear, isn't enough to sink a company that made 15 billion Canadian last year. But it's not just the fine they're worried about.
The indirect costs are more worrisome. The costs of remediation, the costs of fixing the problem. And sometimes that's estimated as being as much as 3 times the cost of the penalty itself.
Last year, TD was set to buy an American bank, First Horizon, for more than 13 billion US. That deal fell through. According to the Wall Street Journal, regulators wouldn't sign off on it because they were worried about the bank's handling of suspicious customer transactions.
All the banks around the world that deal with TD are going to start to ask some serious questions about whether or not interactions with TD will taint their own banks.
Now, we reached out to TD, and they say they are cooperating with all of these investigations, providing documents and video surveillance to authorities, and in the last couple of years, it's put $500 million into its anti-money laundering program. They're hiring new staff, adding training and new technology. But the CEO's message to employees right now, this is going to get tougher before it gets better.
Andrew Chang, the host of About That, will be bringing more of his deep explanations to The National. And you can catch About That every weekday on CBC News Explore or anytime on CBC Gem, on YouTube, or on cbcnews.ca. Up next, a Jays fan struck with a foul ball.
I got rocked. It felt like my head flew back, my hat flew off. Someone said it was 110 miles per hour.
How her painful moment is now becoming a piece of sports memorabilia. That is Liz McGuire, the lifelong Blue Jays fan with a black eye. The aftermath of being struck in the face by a foul ball at the game on Friday. Liz posted that picture with a few jokes to social media, taking her unexpected injury in stride. And now she'll be getting some very special souvenirs as a tribute. Tonight, it makes our moment.
I did not see the ball coming. I got rocked. It felt like my head flew back, my hat flew off. Someone said it was 110 miles per hour just off the bat, and then my head started to swell up, and the terror and the horror of the fans and children around me let me know that perhaps I was not okay. Within minutes, I had it was a goose egg right on my head. The ball rolled down, and another fan took it. The crowd was chanting "give her the ball," and she just ran out and didn't give me the ball. At this time, I can confirm that I am concussed. I have a headache. I feel a bit nauseous, but I'm in good spirits. The Blue Jays reached out to me. They're giving me a Bo Bichette signed ball and hooking me up with some future tickets. Topps made a baseball card of me, which is insane. I will be at tomorrow's game where I'll pick up the ball and I will be very excited to have it in hand.
Okay, so Topps will be issuing 110 of those cards to mark the speed of the ball that hit her. Her plans is she wants to sign and sell some of the cards and donate the money to a charity where proceeds will help children with concussions. It's a tribute to the kids who looked after her after the incident. So a full circle moment right there. For all of us here at The National, thank you for being with us. You can watch anywhere, anytime on the free CBC News app and subscribe to The National's YouTube channel. I'm Asha Tomlinson. Take care.